You request access to FLUX 3, wait days, hear nothing, and your launch ships on MiniMax H3 instead. These two video models aren't playing the same game at all. FLUX 3 is a closed cinematic video model chasing the best looking clip, and MiniMax H3 is an open Omni model you can run today. One of them is actually available to you right now. Alright, one of the biggest problems I run into when using AI agents is turning their output into YouTube content I can actually use to market my product. That's why this video is sponsored by Subscriber, a tool that helps business owners connect their AI agents to YouTube and market their products without spending 10 hours every week creating content. You can connect Claude or ChatGPT directly to Subscriber. It then analyzes your business, website, and YouTube channel to help you create SEO-optimized video ideas, scripts, thumbnails, and even complete videos that actually match your brand. What I like most is that every week, Subscriber gives me a list of high-potential video ideas I can immediately execute, and it can even help edit videos for me, with or without my face, including videos like the one you're watching right now. It's easy to get started, and you can try Subscriber for free using the link in the description below. Now back to the video. So test 1 is cost, and this is the number that kills your project before it even starts. You're planning a video pipeline, you go to price it out, and one model has a clear per second rate on its model page, and the other has a contact form. That's a wall, and budget planning stops cold when you can't put a number in a spreadsheet. I pulled up both model pages, and MiniMax H3 lists 14 cents per second at 2K resolution and 10 cents per second at 768p, right there in public. FLUX 3 has no published price at all and requires you to request early access just to find out what it costs. So you're comparing a concrete budget line to a mystery, and for anyone shipping a real product, that mystery is a blocker. MiniMax H3 takes cost, and it's not even a contest. I expected both models to at least have a rate card, but FLUX 3 gives you nothing to work with, so MiniMax H3 goes up 1 to 0. A budget you can't build is a project that doesn't ship. I know that pricing wall because I've spent enough time inside these models to hit it on a real deadline. Drop a comment if a missing rate card has ever killed your project timeline. Okay, so test 2 is coding benchmark performance, and 59.0% and SWE-Bench Pro is the number on the table here. If you're trying to use one of these models inside an agentic workflow that touches code, you need to know whether it can handle a real software task or whether it's going to stall out, and one of these models was never designed to write a line of code. Watch what happens here. FLUX 3 is a video and image model, so there are no coding scores for it at all. MiniMax H3's M3 backbone posts 59.0% on SWE-Bench Pro, 66.0% on Terminal-Bench 2.1, and 28.8% on Kernel Bench Hard. All vendor reported, but specific and verifiable. So this dimension is really a scope check more than a race, and MiniMax H3 is the only one even in the building. MiniMax H3 takes coding benchmarks, and that puts it 2 to 0. I'll be honest, I expected some kind of scope overlap here, but FLUX 3 simply isn't a coding model, so MiniMax H3 wins this by default, and the lead grows. If you need any agentic or text-based capability alongside your video work, MiniMax H3 is the only one that can even try. Now, test 3 is speed, and 15 times faster decode is the number sitting on one side of this comparison. If you're running a high-volume pipeline and your model is slow, every extra second of generation, time multiplies across your whole batch, and your cost climbs with it, so slow generation on a tight deadline is a real budget and schedule problem. I couldn't find any published speed figures for FLUX 3, no community benchmarks, nothing from the team. MiniMax H3's M3 architecture claims more than 9 times faster prefill and more than 15 times faster decode versus the previous generation, and those are vendor numbers. So take them directionally, but they're specific and measurable, and FLUX 3 has no data to challenge that. MiniMax H3 takes speed, and that's 3 to 0. I figured FLUX 3 might at least have some community timing data floating around, but there's nothing to compare, so MiniMax H3 wins on the only numbers that exist. For any time-sensitive pipeline, the safer pick is the model that actually tells you how fast it runs. Okay, so MiniMax H3 has been running the table, but we've still got context and output limits coming up, and that's the dimension FLUX 3 was actually built for. If FLUX 3 can't take that one, the whole case for choosing it gets a lot harder to make, and then deployment and modality decides whether any of this is even usable for you in practice. So, test 4 is context and output limits, and 20 seconds is the ceiling we're looking at on one side here. If you're trying to generate a full scene in a single shot and your model caps out at 15 seconds, you're stitching clips together, adding edit points, and losing the seamless feel you were going for. So that extra 5 seconds of single shot generation is the difference between 1 cut and 0 cuts. The part that got me here is how clean the split is. FLUX 3 generates up to 20 seconds in a single shot, and MiniMax H3 tops out at 15 seconds, so FLUX 3 wins on raw clip length. But MiniMax H3 comes back with a 1 million token context window for complex, multi-step prompts, and FLUX 3 doesn't even publish a context limit, so you've got two different advantages pointing at two different use cases. FLUX 3 takes context and output limits on the strength of that 20-second single-shot capability. So the score moves to 3-1, and I'll be honest, I had to run the numbers twice because FLUX 3 finally gets on the board here, and it's a real win for anyone who needs that longer uncut clip. That puts MiniMax H3 ahead 3-1. Alright, test 5 is deployment and modality, and open weight running on a 3090 is where one of these models sits. If you're building a product that needs to self-host, fine-tune, or run without a third-party API dependency, a closed model with no published hardware requirements is a hard blocker because you can't build on a foundation you don't have access to. MiniMax H3 is open weight confirmed by the community to run on consumer GPUs, including a 3090, and it covers video, image, audio, and text in one model. FLUX 3 is closed, API only, with no public hardware specs, and a dev backbone that's listed as coming later. So for self-hosting and any kind of customization, MiniMax H3 is the only real option on the table right now. MiniMax H3 takes deployment and modality, and that closes it out 4-1. The safer pick across this whole comparison is MiniMax H3, because the downside of betting on FLUX 3 right now is you might wait weeks for an invite and still not be able to ship. Okay, so here's where FLUX 3 actually beats MiniMax H3. You get up to 20 seconds of video in a single shot, which is 5 seconds longer than MiniMax H3's cap, and that matters for uncut cinematic scenes. FLUX 3 also generates native synchronized audio in the clip, and early community tests are calling its detail and realism genuinely exceptional. So the output quality ceiling is real. And here's where MiniMax H3 clearly wins. It has transparent per second pricing at $14 per second at 2K, so you can actually budget, it's open weight and runs on consumer GPUs. So self-hosting is real. It handles video, image, audio, and text in one model, and it posts a 59% score on SWE Bench Pro, which means it can pull weight in agentic workflows too. If you need the absolute best looking 20-second clip, and you can get an invite, go FLUX 3. If you need a model you can price, deploy, and build on today, MiniMax H3 wins 4-1, and it's not close. One thing that didn't make it into the formal tests, MiniMax H3 has a separate upscale pipeline called H3 Regenerate 2K, which is a distinct step you have to call explicitly to get 2K output. The base generation runs at 768p, and the 2K rate only kicks in when you run that second pass, so your real cost per clip is higher than the headline air rate implies. If you're still figuring out which model to build your stack around, I'd check out the Claude Sonnet 5 breakdown next. It's a different class of model, but the same question applies. Is it actually worth it for your workflow? That video's up next, and it goes pretty deep on the practical side of things.